Hello world, this is my daily routine as a medical student in SoCal. Nothing too crazy here, just making sure my teeth and hair look okay for the camera. I live in a 3-bed and 3-bathroom, pretty close to campus. Unfortunately, it's pretty pricey, about $1,300 per month, but at least the view is pretty nice. I don't have any required sessions today, but I still like to wake up pretty early to eat breakfast and get some studying done before I get too lazy. Some hot tea and plant therapy here to help wake me up a little and keep me zen. And that's pretty much my breakfast. This is the part of my day where I do some review flashcards, and wow, I didn't realize I breathed this hard while studying. Maybe I should get that checked out, but I promise it's not as stressful as it looks. I'm gonna go to campus soon. All I need to really bring is a laptop and my iPad. Alright, gonna do some on-campus studying, but first we gotta drop off this bad boy. This bad boy for our COVID test. As I said before, I live pretty close to campus. It's about a 5-minute walk to get to the COVID testing center. Alright, just finished dropping it off. Got my new test for next week, and now we're gonna go to class. Yeah, currently in the loading communities right now. So this is an area where we can go and study throughout the day. Taking a little study break back at home before I go back on campus. One question I was asked about from Miki was like, what is a typical semester is at med school? We have blocks in between, which are sections of the semester dedicated to learning about a specific part of the body, and that is usually about 3 to 4 weeks long. You can usually do whatever you want in between because med schools tend to value the independence of their students. Like, they have lectures you can go to in person if you want to, but then you can also stream them, which is what I typically do. At the end of that, you take the examination and you pass. But this won't last forever until you're about 60% done with your second year. Then you take your first board examination. After that point, you're going to be working in the hospital. Reheated some mapo tofu. Gotta have my kimchi. Some rice here. During and after dinner, I try not to do too much work because I want to make sure I'm well rested for the next day. That helped me. Doing some late night research. Sorry, this looks pretty scary, but it's nothing bad. Alright, I know that was a pretty short glimpse of my day, but I hope you enjoyed.
It's Miki, welcome back to the channel. I'm here with my friend Johnny today.
Hello, I'm Johnny.
You want to give a little brief intro?
Yeah, of course. I'm originally from the Bay Area, and now I'm a career medical student in SoCal.
So to start this off, Johnny and I actually went to college together. We went to UCLA.
Go Bruins.
Go Bruins. We have a pretty crazy story for how the two of us actually met. Do you remember how we met?
Yeah, I do. It was after my spring quarter of freshman year.
2015? 2016?
Yeah, 2016. I think it's
Okay.
2016, and we were flying back. Then I saw this girl and her mom there. I decided to say hi to them, and we were talking the line. And I thought it was one of those brief conversations, but then we ended up sitting next to each other on the plane.
Yeah,
right?
Went back to the Bay Area,
Yeah,
and then we didn't talk at all. But then we came back to school, started hanging out. Here we are, years later.
Yeah.
My only college friends that I still talk to this
Absolutely.
day. So do you want to tell us a little bit about like med school and your background related to that?
Yeah, so right now I'm a med student in school at SoCal, and my day-to-day is pretty simple. We have class, we have certain things called blocks where we learn about certain body systems. For example, we just had our cardio block, we learned things about the heart, now with the pulmonary block, and we keep on doing this until halfway through our second year, until that's when we take step 1, which is our first part of the board exam. But that's more like my day-to-day. My path before then, I wasn't really going to be in medicine. I thought I was going to be an engineer like my dad.
If you don't mind sharing, what were your stats getting into med school, and what were the extracurriculars outside of academics that you feel like really set you apart?
I feel like my stats were the most excellent, but they're not bad. I feel like they're very average for going to med school.
Johnny's being very modest right now.
Yeah, but my GPA was a 3.7 when I was applying, and my MCAT was a 5.15 when I was applying to med school.
And to give a little context, what was your undergraduate major?
My undergrad major was chemical engineering.
And then what were the extracurriculars that you did in college?
There were two main things I did in college. One was this club called iGEM. It stands for Internationally Genetically Engineered Machines. And that's more like a biotech club. You go to like Boston to compete in this jamboree. And then my second one was EMS, where I was like an EMT on campus for about 2 years.
In a typical week in college, how were you spending your time? Like how much was divided doing academics? How much were you working? Like how are you juggling all that?
I would say 10 hours was for like academic stuff. I think that's very fair. But I was like working a lot during that time. I think after sophomore year, we were averaging like 20 or 30 hours per week for EMS. Sometimes it would go to 40 or 50 during like heavy weeks. I think like it was an experience I will never forget in terms of working on an ambulance, but it definitely took a lot of time, and that's something you should consider too when you take on these extracurriculars. Like your first priority should always be towards make sure your stats can qualify to get into med school. Then the extracurriculars are your icing on the top.
Now you are a second year medical student, so can you tell us a little bit about how the curriculum is structured throughout the 4 years of medical school and how your time is spent?
Yeah, absolutely. So the first 1.5 years of med school is something called preclinicals, where you go in and learn kind of the foundations of medicine, start from like basic biochemistry, go Krebs cycle, and then you go into your system blocks like cardio, pulmonary, as I mentioned before. Then after that point, you have this dedicated period where you study for step 1, which is your first board exam for your medical certification. It's about like 2 months, I would say.
Gotcha.
And after that, your rest of your time in medical school is dedicated towards your clerkships. Your rotations are about 6 weeks long. During that time, you also apply to residency and so on and so forth. But that's pretty much your overview of the 4-year curriculum in med school.
Can you give people an idea exactly how long before you actually become an attending physician?
It is a long time, much longer than people expect, right? So after high school, you go through the Premed curriculum, and that is 4 years, 3 to 4 years of undergrad. Usually people graduate early sometimes. Then you go through 4 years of medical school, and during that time you apply to a residency program. Probably the shortest one off the top of my head is internal medicine, with about 3 years, and then you get like a job afterwards, or you can apply for a fellowship. But then there's some longer ones like neurosurgery is like 7 years, and you may have to do a fellowship still after that, so maybe like 8 years, right? So if we're thinking about after high school, you have 4 plus 4, 8 years, plus additional 7, 15 years. You want to do like some sort of like neurosurgery specialty, right? I would say average residency lengths are about 5 years, so I would say like healthy 14 years.
A healthy 14 years! So you're currently a med student during a COVID pandemic, so how has COVID affected your education?
Especially at the school I go to, not a lot of students go to class in person, and we usually stream it in the end. So it was, I would say, more or less the same. Sure. I think like the social aspect of course is missing because it's hard to do like these group events together. I guess another thing too is that we didn't have an anatomy lab during this time. It was all online. This varied greatly depending which med school you went to, but we didn't have anatomy at my school.
Was there a lot of components on Zoom? How were you having interactive classes? What did that experience look like?
Yeah, we had some interactive classes. Like we had required sessions probably every 2 weeks or so.
Okay.
And that's when we got together and I got to talk to our classmates and have more of these like, mixer kind of events, right?
Sure.
And our student council, they really tried their best to plan like small social events so that we can at least like meet in small groups safely and get to know our class.
Some people say that the hardest part is getting into medical school and it all gets easier from there. Would you agree or disagree with that statement?
It depends because like once you enter medical school, like the first 3 years would be pretty nice, but then as soon as you enter the hospital in your rotation and you start residency, and God knows residency is very, very tough. And so there will be a 4 or 5 year period where you'll have like be very busy. But then most especially once you become an attending, it becomes much more chill. I feel like so far for me, it's been nicer since I got it. Yeah.
Do you feel like that stress from being pre-med and not knowing whether or not you get into medical school, is that a stress that is much higher than what you have having to, go through all your didactics and studying?
Yeah, because like when you're a pre-med, you don't know if you're going to go into get into med school in the first place, right? But at least like after you get into med school, it's a much more linear pathway. Like a lot of US MD graduates will match right? I think it's like pretty high, like 96%, 97%, right? So you'll most likely get into residency program and become a doctor. Whereas like your pre-med, if you don't get to med school that decide to stop it, that's it. That's the end of the story.
What would you say are the biggest red flags for someone who wants to go into medicine and green flags?
Some of the big red flags you kind of hear about, doing it for the prestige, for money, because if you were going originally for the money, then you'll get very demotivated early on, especially because it gets so tough. You're working like 110 hours a week, somewhere close to like minimum wage.
And people have done analyses actually about how going into medicine for the money is completely not worth it, because for the 15 years that you are in school, you're missing out on so much income and so much, climbing corporate hierarchies and things like that. And so despite people thinking that physicians are overpaid, quote unquote, even if you're getting paid, $300,000, $400,000, you still have a buttload of student loan you have to pay off and all these things. And so I truly think, it comes out as a pretty fair wage, right?
Yeah, it comes out a pretty fair wage.
I think a really big red flag is if you are really bad at staying up late or waking up early, because almost all of medicine requires you to stay up really late, work really long hours.
To like a specific example, when you start your general surgery rotation, you'll be at the hospital for like 20 hours straight.
And then moving on to green flags, anything that you feel like you see in common with all of your classmates?
I feel like green flags that I like to see is something you have a hook, right? I think med schools, when they see how they build a class, they want some engineers, they want some scientists, some artists, right? People who are really good at language. Yeah, good mix.
So that was all the serious stuff. So what do you actually do for fun? How much time do you have for free time, hobbies, things like that?
Absolutely none. So there's plenty of time to have fun times in med school, and I really encourage it because it is a long path. So you do want to take care of yourself. Like at this point, don't do a lot of work on the weekend. Spend time with my partner in San Diego, and I go skateboard around LA. My class is very social, so some of them go to the beach on the weekends. Some of them have sit by the pool kind of day. So it doesn't have to be like a big event, but it's good to have a lot of contact with other people. I did a lot of work, but I would not be here without the support of my friends and my family. If you take a break in the weekend and start fresh on a project in the weekday, you'll probably be much more productive, honestly, right? Instead of just trying to power through and struggle, right? So I think that's my advice on having fun.
It's pretty crazy if you think about when we first met in 2016 and now 5 years later, where our initial goals were.
It feels surreal sometimes. Sometimes I get caught in the moment, wow, I'm tired. Once you set a goal, you don't have to commit to it.
I'm so honored and so privileged to be Johnny's friend. Truly, Johnny is one of the smartest and hardest working people I've ever met.
Thank you so much for those compliments, and it's very awesome to have you as my friends and someone to always talk to about anything.
Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have other questions for Johnny, you can leave them in the comments down below and maybe he'll get to it and answer it for you guys. But as always, don't forget to hit that like button
and subscribe.
See you guys next time. Bye.
Bye.